with Tracy and Chirstine. Good morning. Is it morning?
Morning. Yes, it's still morning.
So this is the end of week 3, and the theme of the week was mind, and Tracy's with us. So maybe you can introduce yourself just so that everybody knows who you are and what you do.
Thanks, Cam. Yeah, so I'm Tracy, and I'm a yoga teacher and a social worker and a health and wellness coach. And my focus is ordinarily supporting parents of LGBT plus people and LGBT plus people, but that's not the case right now. So my focus has been around yoga and, well, I guess, incorporating my yoga skills, my social work skills, and my coaching skills to try and create something that can support Chirstine with, I guess, improving mindset and understanding how the mind influences the body and vice versa.
Amazing. And what I really love about your work, Tracy, is just your commitment for inclusivity. And while it isn't, directly the population that you normally work with, it's just really cool to have that sort of expression be inside of our program. Again, I'm very grateful for it because we can really learn a lot having a more inclusive lens on anything we do, really.
Thanks. And yes, that's very true. We can all learn. We're all on a learning journey, aren't we? And having other people's lens focused on what we do on an everyday basis is really important, I think.
It's true. I have the belief that everybody kind of has a gift, a lens by which they look through. Mm-hmm. And I think it's so cool to find out how each of those lenses can kind of contribute to all of us, because everybody has those individual unique superpowers. It's just kind of finding a way to use them,
Yeah, bring them alive.
Bringing them alive. Mm-hmm. So now what I'm going to do is share my screen, and I'm going to go over a little weekly recap. And it is missing. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome.
The week 3 report, yeah?
That is right. I'm just going to make my screen bigger. There we go. So I found this little image and I liked it. I thought self-care isn't selfish. I thought that it was a fitting picture.
Yeah, it's great.
So we're on Fuel Mind, and this is Chirstine's health journey. And so some of the things that are different from last week, discovering a deeper sense of mindfulness is kind of been the focus for this week, allowing herself to reflect on what's actually going on in her mind, and maybe pausing if there are new things that she's experiencing, and perhaps allowing herself to disconnect from what's happening, and then having a bit more choice and power for her to do the things she wants to do. And we're continuing to develop purpose and identify what Chirstine wants, what she likes, and also what she doesn't like. And also we're monitoring different biometrics like we talked about in the other weeks, which we'll be going over. And some little changes as well is we've actually incorporated intuitive eating. And I'm really curious to hear how that was for Chirstine this week, but also continuing our habits with sleep and water intake, and spending more time breathing, checking in with the self, and being mindful, and having more opportunity for her to ask questions, reflect, and say what she has discovered to the group, and just having more of her voice in it. It's been really cool to hear her reflections. And just like the other weeks, we've been entering into the self-discovery journal and doing our daily reflections, which I encourage everyone to check out. They're awesome. We're doing our weekly review right now and discussing the different adjustments, which we'll do very shortly. And she's, like before, had access to myself, Tracy, and various other professionals when she needs us on her terms. And we did some tracking of the biometrics like the weeks before, just to see. We'll go over those briefly. And the other two focuses are the same as last week: encouraging social activities that involve community and linking to already existing routines. So we had a decrease in sleep this week, not by a lot, 22 minutes on average per day decrease, but it looks pretty like, consistent, the amount of sleep per day, which in other weeks it was more high and other days low. And the steps actually increased. Something I want to note here is that last week you had like your adventure to the mall, and this week you probably had other adventures, hey? Starting up your spin class again. Oh, you had adventures, come on.
No, all I did was during the week, when the days were nice and sunny, I encouraged my coworker to go on a walk with me. And so this is actually something I had done several years ago, where it's a really nice office park that we are working in. And I went outside to eat my lunch one day because I was just like, I just need to get some air, like work was stressing me out. And then another day I was like, you know what, I want to walk. Let's see what happens to my step count for the week. And so I'm trying to develop that habit while there's still some nice weather, because once we lose our sun, like that probably won't happen anymore. So yeah, just taking advantage, getting out.
That's amazing.
Great.
Yeah, so it shows. So we call these in I guess like what would the health policy, I guess, like in nursing or kinesiology or different health coaching disciplines, they call it activities of daily living. So it's modifying your behaviors such that the totality of activity that you do is greater. And the impact of that, if you look on a year's scale, is that it's massive, like absolutely massive, if you consider that we have to support our weight every single time we take a step, right? So it might not seem like a big deal in the short term, but every single week you've had an increase in steps, which creates a different future for you, probably, right? So amazing. And then again, nailed it. Nailed it with the content, with the entering into the self-discovery journal, and the accountability. So awesome job.
Nice work.
And that is a little bit of housekeeping recap, just kind of like throw that in there before we get into some more of the questions and the story around how it was. So Tracy, do you want to say anything to start us off here, where Chirstine can maybe start from? Because I'm gonna give this one to you. Usually I kind of start it, but I'm gonna throw it to you because this week's a little different.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm really just curious on how it all went, because I put this together, like normally I would be speaking with the person and figuring out with them what I do, or what I offer, and we didn't do that. So I'm just really curious about how everything went, how the flow went, how each activity was it in a how was the order of activities? Yeah, I'm just curious.
Okay. I think it was, and this is kind of something that happened in the body week, was adding more to already a busy schedule. And so I felt so bad because there were these other things that were given to me, but I was like, when am I going to do this? Like, when am I going to find to do it? And on top of that, a realization that, which I kind of had for a while now, is it's awkward to work out at home, especially when my boyfriend's around. So I'm the type of person where I get shy, which is kind of odd to think, like shy to do anything when people are watching, especially at home, at least. Yeah. So I was like, oh, I can't really do this. So like I squeezed in like the whole breathing in the office because I can shut the door and it's just me. It was like early morning, and so I was able to get those morning stretches that you had given on my very first day. Like reading the articles, super easy. I just take some time out of my work day and just be like, all right, let's take a break from my work and just read this article. So like all that sort of stuff was just so like informational, like a lot of stuff like I didn't know, which was cool. Like the breathing, I still can't get over. Like I needed that so much.
It's so powerful, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, especially on that day when I had to teach my first class back, and I'm just like, I'm jumping up and down. I'm trying to shake up the nervousness and like the excitement nerves. And then I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to sit at my desk and do this breathing. And then I'm like, oh, why didn't I do this earlier?
Good on you.
And so I was just like, oh, I needed that so bad. And yeah, but like, I don't want to leave anything behind. Like, actually, my boyfriend's off today. He's doing some stuff. So I have the house to myself. So like, I was definitely going to do the whole asana routine that you gave me today, because like my butt got kicked the last 3 days of doing spin, and I need a nice like stretch. I need a recovery. I just need to focus. But yeah, like sun salutations, like those are like the root of all yoga for me. Like I love it. Every time they announce sun salutations, I'm like, yes.
Yeah. And the beauty of them is you can do one to just get your body going and wake yourself up, or get your body moving because you've been sitting at your desk, or you can do 108 if it's International Yoga Day.
Yeah, no, like I like when I'm in a class, normally it's about like they'll normally do about 3 to like 8, because then they're like, okay, now do it at your own pace, and I'm like, all right. So yeah, no, definitely. And it was definitely like a sense, like it was one that I recognized and I know like I could actually put to memory and do on my own time. So like that was great. But yeah, and then the TED Talk, I listened to it this morning before I took off for class. So yeah, so I'm definitely I'm gonna probably watch it again, because there was a lot of information in there that I wanted to note so I could like give my thoughts on it later. But yeah, I can't remember. There was a couple things that like stood out in my mind, but I just can't think of it at the moment. So I'll have to watch it again.
That's okay. It's pretty powerful, and like you said, it is full of lots of different information. So yeah.
Actually, the one thing that stood out about it went to shame of women expecting to be a certain, like if you didn't live up to the expectations of what your role as a female is. And I went to this Art of Leadership for Women, and there was a bunch of speakers, and one of them did talk kind of on that topic of letting go as women of the expectations that the world puts on us. Because it's those same expectations that like hold us back from you know, breaking through the glass ceiling and going for those high positions in companies. And so yeah, I definitely resonate a lot with that, because I feel like it's the career that is holding me back sometimes from living up to the expectations of being a woman, which is like, I should have been married by now, I should have had kids by now, and like that's just family pressure as well, and being the oldest. But I always have to remind myself, like, I've worked so hard to get to where I am, like I don't want to stop. And you know, if and when that happens, it'll happen, but if it's not, like that's just not what my path was meant for, so I'm not going to stress over it. So yeah,
that's great. I think I don't know how many times I've watched that YouTube myself, because I think each time you pick up something different. Depending on where you're at any particular moment, you'll pick up what you need in that moment. Yeah. And she does have a lot more. So if maybe when you've got a bit more time and you're not having all of the tasks and activities allocated to you, you can take a look.
I was so excited when I saw that. Brene Brown. I even threw in a recommendation. One of my favorite books is Gifts of Imperfection. And you got it? That's right. I've listened to it probably 3 times. One of the times it was a camping trip, and I just like laid on a picnic table in a partial rain listening to it. I have a very vivid memory of it. It was very peaceful.
Nice.
Highly recommend. So.
And if you're talking about leadership too, Chirstine, if that is something you're interested in career-wise, or even learning to understand the leadership that you experience from others. Her latest book is really good in relation to leadership and being a woman, and not just being a woman, but yeah, it's I can't remember the name of it though.
Brave.
There is Daring Greatly, but I think that's not her latest. It's I can send it to you. It'll come to me as soon as the video's finished. I'm sure.
Cool. So what I heard actually, Chirstine, that I want to highlight really quick is actually a layer on what we discovered last week. So it was something that we already know is that what doesn't work for you is doing workouts at home, like doing workouts that you have the experience of effort is needed. I don't want to do this alone in a room watching a YouTube video, right? But what does work for you is doing stretching alone. That works because that effort isn't there. And for, your own individual reasons, that works. Layer though, the feeling that you need to be by yourself and have that full control of your environment, no one around, no one watching you, and then you can do it. So you pointed directly to points in time, the morning, when you're at work, at the park, where you have that control, where you can be with yourself and you can do those things. The time where you weren't able to take action was when your boyfriend was home, or you had the experience that you couldn't take action, right? Because you technically could. Nothing really stops you, but it's a comfort thing. And I just wanted to acknowledge that little extra layer, because these are the things that we're talking about in the self-discovery journal. If you know that inherently you will not follow through with something that has lots of people around, then we would want to tailor things that would be so that it's probable that you do it.
Yeah.
But not like just suffer. Like, I mean, like you enjoy it too, because we know that you can do anything. You've already shown that very, consistently. So is there anything like more that you can add to that topic where you've noticed during the week?
I think also because when I've practiced yoga previously, it really is an inward focus. And I would prefer to not have people walking by or distractions. Like, I really want to give in wholeheartedly to the practice and reap the most rewards out of it. And knowing that was those tasks, I was like, I'm just going to have to find some time where I can actually really give in to like feeling in that moment. So then I can, really write down my thoughts. Like, how did I feel when I went through all that? And so like stretching is stretching. With yoga, it's different. Like I do want to honor the purpose and what it, provides me. So today is like going to be the perfect time. Like after this call, I can definitely we'll have to shower because I just got out of the gym. But after that, we're going to get some sun salutations and a yoga practice going on so I can just relax. Plus I've been doing some, I told you, Tracy, how I was doing some crocheting to get my mind off things.
Yeah.
So I've now made this freaking blanket.
Wow.
my way to disconnect now, because, and then like I said, when I get into something, it becomes this big project. And so we're gonna see how big this goes.
Wow.
But
it looks massive already.
we can do a recap at the end of the entire journey. How big did the blanket get? Because I went to Michael's yesterday and bought 7 balls of yarn. And it's kind of this bonding thing for me and my boyfriend now, because he's like, oh, can you crochet in our names on the blanket? I'm like, no, but I'll make it as big as you want. It's a little bonding thing now that we've got going on. He'll help pull the yarn so I can crochet it. But this has also just been a nice decompression activity for me that all resulted from the body week from last week.
I love it.
That's so great. And I think I provided you with a bit of variety of different things so that you can get a taste if you hadn't already. And I think that's what's important, is you get a bit of a taste, you dabble in some things, and you figure out what works for you. If crocheting works for you, then keep doing it. You don't, all of the things that I provided don't have to be done. They're an experience for you to try out to find something that feels good. So if doing yoga at home with your boyfriend home doesn't feel good, like Cam said, don't do it. You're doing plenty anyway. And find a place where, if you do want to do yoga and feel, because you're right, there is a big difference between stretching and yoga. If you do want to experience that, then pay attention to how you feel and what your body and your mind and your soul is saying to you, so that you can get the benefits of that, where and when and how it will work.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't feel like you have to go and rush to do that video. It's what I provided was an offering of these different things that may be helpful, and I just hope that at least one thing was helpful and that you can take something away from that, which it sounds
definitely.
Sounds like it was. Were you able to do the strengths activity, or was that too much?
No, I totally did that. I sat down at the end of my day. Well, I read through it during the day, and then I wrote some stuff as I was going through the article, and then went through it again at night to reflect on it. And then, yeah, I did that.
And how with, I'm not asking you to give me detail, but how was that for you? Did it feel like it flowed okay? Did it make any difference for you?
Yeah, no, it really let me just kind of reflect on how a lot of the strengths that I was kind of pointing out are like really just, they are in a part of my everyday life, like whether that be with family or in the workspace or in my volunteer work. So yeah, no, it's just nice to see it all laid out.
Yeah. Because we all know it, don't we? It's just whether or not we pay attention.
Yeah, like it's like, yeah, I know they exist, but it's very different when you write it down and, like you said, acknowledge it.
Yeah. It's important. It's so important to tailor to our strengths. And like Tracy said in the post for the day, like, we are always so obsessed with fixing ourselves. But what would it be like if we could like turn up the dial on all of our strengths in different areas of life and actually appreciate it, right? It's a way different headspace, different headspace. Sure.
Well, yeah, and this one was like just kind of thinking about it and picking it, versus when I've done mentoring activities for like Langara or SFU, they give you a Myers-Briggs or the Clifton Strengths, and they're like, here, do this website, and it's going to tell you what your strengths are. Right. And then I get my strengths, and then I have to be like, okay, well, what is it I do that fits this strength so I can make it actually make sense to me, even though, like, for the most part, it is fairly close. Like, it's taking, like, asks hundreds of questions that all kind of seem the same. And then you're like, okay, yeah, I can see how this is a strength of mine, versus actually identifying it myself.
Yeah, and I think having the opportunity to write it down and reflect and really explore, it kind of forces you to be honest with yourself. And, you know, because we all have the unhelpful stories as well. So it forces you to, I guess, see beyond those unhelpful stories. You've now got it written down. And so now you have a tool for the times where those unhelpful stories are becoming a little bit more overpowering, that you can just take a look at that and remind yourself, oh yeah, okay, so it's not all what this other story is telling me.
Well, I picked the word determined, so I'd be like determined to not let that happen.
Love it.
Yeah.
Amazing. So now in the conversation, let's gear towards what didn't work for you. So, and like, I'm not talking about like it was bad or it was like, you know, not good or anything like that. What I'm talking about is like, from what you've discovered this week, what you would say is something that would either need to be altered slightly for it to work, or you know, it wasn't just, it just wasn't something that necessarily, well, worked for you.
Well, I think I had already kind of mentioned it. It was just figuring out the timing so I could actually do the more physical stuff. Like the articles and everything's super easy to get through. It was the things where I had to do things and find time for it. And that was the case even with body, right? Like I was given something to do and it was just kind of like, okay, well, this is beyond just reading articles and, you know, writing down my thoughts. This is now where I'm having to carve time somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I had already added like 2 more things to my plate this week at the gym and didn't cut back anywhere else. And I was just like, but determined to get it done. So it will happen because like I still want to like honor each part of this program and see it through. But yeah, no, it was just timing really was not fun to figure out. Like just like, oh no, I feel so bad, I really want to do this.
So this is actually deliberate, and Tracy has done a wonderful job of like at the end of this whole week, it's this notion of should, like I should do blank. Really, it's actually an invitation. She stated it as an invitation to consider on your terms. Like what would it be like if you took all of the areas that you feel like you should be doing something and you kind of like transformed it into your version? That's the difference, because this whole determined thing, I want you to consider that you can look at it from the lens of honoring yourself. Like what would it look like to be determined in honoring yourself? Because if you are to sacrifice yourself for the gain of others, then you're going to leave yourself behind continually. And that's what there is to discover, and you've done intuitively, actually, because you're stated out loud that you're going to do it. But we're saying that we only want you to actually do it on your terms, or else you're not doing it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a little modification, because I will be honest with you, I am aware of all of the things that you're doing. You are a high level individual where you are busy. You are so committed to your family and how much you are like wanting to impact their lives. And you also do all of this new stuff this week in spin. Plus you are already going to the gym. Like it crossed my mind. Like, I wonder if she's going to be able to do this. And I had to stop myself because I trust that Christine's got this. She will communicate if she needs help. She is determined in crafting it to be something that works for her, right? It's not being focused on the outcome of completing, like ticking the box. It's actually doing it with intention. So I hope that kind of like gives you a bit of pause, because what you've already said about how you want to be able to be mindful and do it properly, it shows me that you're honoring yourself, and also you're honoring Tracy and myself. Like when you're operating that way, we're operating as a team in a sense. And I think that that's really awesome. And I wanted to acknowledge that.
Oh, go for it.
I was just going to say, thank you. I wanted to add, when we use the word honoring, I think it's really important to check in with yourself. Like, who are you honoring and why? Because I personally don't feel like it's honoring anybody or anything if you're going to do something just because it's been given to you and you feel like you should. I would feel that you're honoring yourself and myself and the program, really, if you were to say, do you know what, I already actually have all of these classes and all of these things that I'm doing, that I don't need to be doing this right now, or it doesn't feel good for my body, I've already done this, or it doesn't feel right or comfortable. I'm not saying do or don't do it. When just as an example, when I'm coaching or counseling or providing any kind of therapeutic intervention or even in a yoga class, the word should is banned. And I do use it myself sometimes and have to pull myself up, but really it's about doing what feels right. because it feels right. And we spoke at the start of the week about, you know, like Cam just touched on, your family is really important to you and being a good role model is really important to you. So honoring yourself first and foremost, and only doing what feels good, what feels right, and doing it because of that reason, I think is the best way you can be a role model for the people in your life that you want to make a difference for.
And I think for me as well, like everything that's being offered to me and throughout the weeks is more just for me to, I don't want to disregard anything. Like I really want to give it a fair shot, at least do it once.
Yeah.
Before saying like, no, it just doesn't work for me, or I just don't want to do it. Like I want to at least put that effort out there.
Give it a go. Yeah.
So like I knew like early on, like I'm like, okay, like I can totally do it today. Like I'll be able to get it done. And then from there, like do that self-reflection and be like, all right, yeah, I can totally maybe throw this in on this day now, right? Because that was the other thing too, like that was being harped on, was I wasn't stretching enough. And then the fact that like I was able to get that mobility class in, and now they're actually having like a yoga instructor come in to do it because she was like half trained. So it's more going to be inward inflection versus just a full out stretch. Mm-hmm. So like, I'm looking forward to that this week, next week. But yeah, but actually another thing that kind of resonated a lot was the whole the word was nonviolence, and how, especially when it comes to yoga, and I totally catch myself with this when I first started practicing, was the whole comparing and looking at the other participants like, wow, like they're so flexible. And so there goes the tugging and the pulling and trying to like get, you know, trying to stretch as far as you can. And now when I'm doing my stretching, that actually pops into my brain a lot. Is like, is this a good pain or is this a violent pain? And like, should I dial it back? And even when I'm leading stretches, I'm like, okay, find that point where it feels yummy, not painful. But then that's how you'll be able to kind of tell the difference, at least for me. So
yeah, that's so great. It's such an important message in everything that we do, I think, not causing violence towards ourselves or others, of course. But yeah. And I think your commitment to give everything a go is really admirable. I really like your attitude that and your focus. I'm gonna try it out. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Just don't overdo it in the process.
If anything, yoga is really going to be like the one that's going to take me back and like help me scale it down.
Yeah,
versus me like trying to do like a whole bunch of other stuff. Like, yeah, no, this is needed very much.
Great.
And it's good. Like there's no way for you to have these realizations without bumping into, oh my gosh, I feel overloaded, or oh my gosh, like how am I even going to put this here? Like, how are you going to have that thought preemptively? You can't in the moment. And that's why I've had to dial myself back. This happened last week too, when I was like, oh, should I message? No, she'll be fine. You know? And that I think is just so important, because I think about like your tax time and whatnot. Like when it's predictable that you're going to have more on your plate, right? You're going to do less activity, right? So being able to like shift gears really quickly when things change, like for example, when the weather turns, if you have these internal like discoveries, then you will be able to deal with anything. Like anything that comes your way, you're like, pivot, pivot, right?
I like it.
And so that's what I really love to see, is that just your ability to pivot, just your ability to give everything a shot, to, you know, like Tracy said, it's an admirable quality. And it probably is very much this whole determined thing, why you're so successful in those areas of life. And what would it be like to have those be honored in all areas, right? Practicing nonviolence, practicing that self-compassion. Like, you can literally answer any question at any time. It's like, oh, my body doesn't feel good right now. Okay, cool. Let's not do that then. You're not operating from obligation. You're not operating from should. I say, like, you're shoulding on yourself. I encourage you to just call yourself out on when you're shoulding on yourself, because, you know, sometimes we just need to dial it back. But it's what we make it mean. What do you make it mean when you can't complete a task? If your intention for completing the task is because you make it mean that it, like, by not completing the task, you are not disciplined, or you're not good enough, or you're not honoring people, like, no. And only you know what you make it mean. But call that out, and then ask yourself the question, like, what can I really do this for that has me honor myself and everyone? And I encourage you to look at that in all of the different areas of life, because when we should on ourselves, there's probably something to honor. And asking yourself what you're making that mean in that moment that you should on yourself. So, curious if anything came up from what I just said there.
Actually, it wasn't like getting hard on myself. It was just pretty much, it's on my to-do list. It's in the back of my mind, and it will be taken care of eventually. Just not at this very moment. And I think it also made me think more so on priorities. Like, at this very moment, what are the priorities that need to get done? And unfortunately, like, getting that particular task done at that very moment just was not the priority, but it was still in the back of my mind for when I could make it more of a priority.
So in the background of all of it, you want it to be able to be a priority. So you want to be able to immerse yourself in it and experience it in, like truly experience it. So you use the word unfortunately. Is it really though? Because to me, it's very fortunate that you put it to a time where you can be intentional and honor it. Just to call out exactly what you just said. Is it really unfortunate?
No, shouldn't be.
Shouldn't, right? I don't know. To me, that's.
Here we go with that word again.
Yeah. Just notice it.
So powerful.
Truly, yeah. Because again, why is it unfortunate? It's only unfortunate when we relate to it that way, because the exact opposite is also true, right? It's fortunate that you're the kind of person that puts these things in the place where you can be intentional.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, anything you want to add to that, Tracy?
Well, I was actually going to pick up on that word as well, because cool. I think, you know, I just really love the way that you've gone about it. You're like, I want to give everything a go, and I'm going to give everything a go, but I'm going to prioritize it so it fits in where it needs to fit in. And what a beautiful way to spend part of your Sunday afternoon, finishing off the week or starting the week, depending on where you look Sunday to be, to do a yoga practice. And when you've got the house to yourself, and like you said, that you can really go within and you can be intentional and really nurture yourself as yoga is intended to be. So I just think it's a beautiful way that you've been able to adapt what you've been offered to fit in to your life schedule, but also to well, it's not a but, and also to honor yourself so you get the most out of each experience. Yeah, I just think you've done an amazing job. I was worried, personally, honestly, because I was not aware of the content that you were taking on from previous weeks to continue on with this week, and I wasn't really aware of your full schedule. So when when I made these offerings. And then when we had the chat at the start of the week, I was like, oh, I hope I haven't overloaded you. I'm hoping that you will just take what works and leave out what doesn't. So I'm really impressed, and I'm grateful that you've respected yourself and given everything a go, but in a way that's not harmful to you, and you just managed to fit it in where it felt right for you. It's really great.
So Tracy, you can now see what I mean when I say that your content is a perfect complement to the content before.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's something that I said to Tracy, and something that I look to in the future is like what it would be like, because now everybody's getting attuned to the app where content could be shared between different weeks, and the power that would bring. But that requires sort of like having it all just, you know, work more streamlined and getting people onto the app. But that, Tracy, what you just said is exactly what I'm looking towards, because it's how do we work as a whole team as opposed to it just being like individual contributing to, you know. But those are the
time though.
It does.
Yeah.
It does take time, and I've completely unattached myself to it having it be perfect. The last health journey, I was communicating with every single person individually, and it was unsustainable. I burnt myself out actually, where having people be on the platform and be able to answer questions in that moment is so much more relief for me. And that next level of how Chirstine can feel more supported, any insights around that, and what you just said about sorry, I'm making this about me for a second, is just the insight of having the information of the content and the schedule, like more information about the schedule of the person, is really amazing feedback for me. So thank you.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And I think there's some value in not knowing what was provided from the week before too, because if I saw a really busy schedule from the week before, then I would have probably given you half as much, and you know what I chose to give and what I chose not to give might not have worked for you. So I might have maybe not giving you the Brene Brown TED Talk, and then you would have missed out on that. So just
I would have wanted that one for sure.
So, and how can I know what would be beneficial and what wouldn't? So I think there's some benefit in not knowing, so that we don't put the pressure on ourselves as well to not overload you. But at the same, you know, like it's like everything, it's balance, isn't it? So I think having the feedback though, and maybe in the wording of some things, it will be more of a focus on remember that non-violence, and remember to honor yourself and do what feels right in the moment. It's not a matter of having to complete every single task. It's completing what feels right.
And what I see that I held back from you, Tracy, is that has been a communication that I've had with Chirstine, actually, is that there's actually permission to overload her, because if she has the experience of overload, that I've already told her the expectation that she is to say something, because this is about her.
Yeah.
And by the way, that doesn't mean I'm intentionally going to overload you, but if you're not bumping up against it, then you're not going to say it, you know?
Mm-hmm. And that's part of it, isn't it? Learning to have your own voice, or continuing to have your own voice heard in every aspect of your life. And this is a really good opportunity, I think, to, in a safe environment, in an environment, well, hopefully it feels safe and supportive, and so that you can have your voice and say, okay, so that's a bit much, or give me more, whichever way it is, and practicing that, because that's an amazing skill to have in the rest of your life as well. And I think most of us have an area where we don't express our voice as much as we could.
Mm-hmm. And I think just the whole excitement of being like, week 1, all right, we're off to a great start. Week 2, and then I'm like, oh, I feel like there should be a lot more. And so like I asked Cameron for the entire week, so I know what I was getting myself into. And then I'm like, okay, let's just keep it right here. I'm good.
Yeah.
And then I'm in week 3 and I'm like, I'm not even gonna bother asking. I don't want to know until the day of, because like, because I'm still trying to like, keep the habits going and like maintaining and focusing on stuff from previous and like not messing myself in the future. And so that was a learning lesson from last week. And
Yes, that was yeah. So Tracy, just for some context, that's exactly how it went down. Christine's like, can you send me an overview of the week? So I shared like the overview document that I was speaking with Jeanette. She looked at it and she's like, I'm really glad that you haven't shown these to me. And I've been, and this is kind of like phase 3 for people, but like I partition how the information is sent to her. I add little examples and notes from myself if like I want to add something to what you're saying to like just enhance it, or I don't just like throw all the whole week at her all at once. I'll be like, 8 a.m. I'll send her like a post, and then the next day I send it at 9 a.m. I kind of do it depending on if I think that she needs to know it more ahead of time, and then I make a note saying like, don't worry about doing this like right now, just like ponder it and do it after you finish work, so but that's just it, is like in a traditional fitness program, you want your meal plan, perfect, do your whole meal plan, but it's all then externalized. All of the actions are externalized. Christine has the power. She can turn up the dial or down the dial whenever she wants to. And she can also pivot anytime she wants to. So what would it be like if at any point in your life you could turn the dial down or up or pivot when you wanted to, right? You're not living in should. You're literally just being able to have, not control. I guess control could be one interpretation, but you have, you can be intentional, actually. The sort of dedication and the, being present. Something we talked about at the very, very beginning, Christine, and something that Tracy touched upon. It's like being that role model for your nieces, and for the family even. You don't need to prove anything. You show and demonstrate your commitment and power. I almost want to say that it's like just honoring that you're worth it. And that doesn't mean that you're stating prior that you were not worth it, but it's like, what would it look like to demonstrate that dedication for your own self and have that be expressed to your nieces so that they get it, right? Food for thought.
I think that's one of the most powerful ways of teaching,
Yes.
is to role model. And show your own true authentic self and the care that you have for yourself and the respect that you have for yourself through all of those actions that we've talked about. I think you do an amazing job.
So with respect to closing thoughts, Christine, what are you taking away from this week? And this doesn't mean tasks, by the way. What are you taking away from this week that we can kind of like be there in the future into other weeks?
I think definitely, like I recognized times in my past where I do get very high levels of anxiety while I'm at work, or if not even with work, but like, well, yeah, definitely at work for sure. Especially, there's been lots of moments since the shutdown where we were having to work from home, and I just came out to my boss. I'm like, never have me work from home ever again. I am forever like, I'm traumatized. Like I can't do it. And so, yeah, like, but if there are times, like our offices are under renovation, so there are going to be days where I'm going to have to work from home. But when I find those levels of frustration coming around, or even again, if I'm teaching a class and I'm getting nervous because it's been so long, and just any time in life, like I think it's just taking that time to pause and breathe breathe, and like just take a break, disconnect from everything that's floating in my mind, and like just shake it all away slowly with the 4-8 count breath. But so that was a huge thing for me this week. Another thing was also that whole nonviolence thing is, you know, and it's not just nonviolence when stretching. It's like I'm pushing myself so hard. And what I realized was when I got back to teaching on Friday is although it's not my workout, I even dialed it back. I still ended up kicking my own ass and it hurt the next morning when I tried to do spin class. And I was in that class feeling miserable because I was like, why am I here? I should have took the day off. And then so I was like, you know what, that's it. Next week I'm not doing Saturdays. Like that is a rest day now. I'm like, never. Like I can't. It's too much. So yeah, no, that was definitely it adds another level to the whole mindfulness of not stressing my body out too much and pushing too hard, because at the end of the day it's going to take an injury for me to stop me and I can't let that happen, because then I'm no good to nobody or myself. Like that whole nonviolence it really stood out for this week for me. So yeah. And I'm sure that TED Talk again, like I'm going to discover more things as I go through it and actually take the time to write notes. I just kind of briefly watched it before I was getting ready for the gym. So I wanted to write things down and I'm like, oh, I can't, I'm getting ready. So I'm like, I'm going to have to, yeah, I know for sure I'll be taking some gems out of that one.
I think that's a good way to do it, especially with her TED Talks, is to just watch them and just let whatever resonate. And then if you want to really kind of dial in on the messaging, to watch it again and write notes. Because I think otherwise you're distracted by trying to write notes the first time round. I think it's really, I don't know, that's what feels good for me, is to let it resonate with you without any, I guess, distracting focuses on, I've got to write this down, and you're pausing so that you can write it, or you're missing bits because you're not pausing and writing. I think, yeah.
And I think actually, like now, like as I'm thinking more about it, the other thing that came out from that TED Talk for me was the idea of being perfect. And if you're always trying to be perfect, you're not being vulnerable. So, and I think this was huge for me becoming an instructor, was I didn't want to become an instructor unless I looked like what I thought in my mind was a perfect looking instructor. And it took someone to tell me that you should become an instructor, because then people will look at you and say, I resonate with you. And like that to them would be inspiring. And I'm like, yeah. And then from then on, I was like, yeah, I should totally do this. But it's then showing like, I'm going to struggle with you. And this is now my vulnerability showing that I'm going to kill myself in class, but it's because I want to work hard with you, and you're going to see all the sweat, and it's not going to be perfect looking. I'm not going to be an influencer model out of this. This is just, we're going to work hard. Right. So yeah, I think that also resonated off the top of my head.
It's so refreshing, honestly. Like, we need more of that in the world, especially in the fitness industry that is basically marveling of, I mean, it's just narcissism at its core in the fitness industry. It's not inspiring, right? If we're fostering patterns of self-shame and glorifying aesthetics, then you're only going to be good when you believe that you look good, and only when you achieve that. However, movement, I've said this before, like you can extract value from movement now if you want to. If your goal is to lose weight and you go to the gym, it's not like you just like, the weight just like comes off. Doesn't come off instantaneously, does it? No, you don't like watch it like water droplets just fall off your body. That doesn't happen, right? So then if you are so focused on that outcome, that's an outcome that happens in the future. It's an important outcome, but if you're always future focused in the outcome, you can never appreciate the present. The present feeling of enjoying moving in your body, enjoying the rush, the energy that you get from it. When that happens, you will burn more calories. And if you do that consistently, you will lose weight. So being able to enjoy in the moment, that behavior is correlated with the future outcome. But our minds, especially, I mean, I'm just going to project this because I don't know really, but like an accountant, come on, of course you're going to be future oriented, right? Of course you are. Right?
Deadlines.
Deadlines, projections, blah, blah, blah. But listen, if like the staff show up every day on time and they are focused, that would be correlated with business booming, right? And the outcomes of generating revenue. Same thing works here. If you show up to the class and you enjoy and you are happy at the class and you like laugh and are authentic and you really are vulnerable and inspire people, the byproduct is weight loss, actually. So I encourage you to look at this byproduct effect. Find out how you can extract the good from every moment, because even walking in the rain can be something that you enjoy if you allow yourself to. And I'm not suggesting that you do that, but I'm just using it as an example. And some
Vancouver, you must enjoy walking in the rain.
Yeah,
You?
that's true.
Yeah.
Born and raised Vancouverite, I should know better. I walk in the rain with no umbrella because I'm just like in denial.
I just don't like umbrellas.
It's cooler. So anything you want to add to what I was sharing, Tracy?
I think you summarized it really well. I just want to reiterate that, you know, the offerings that we provide for you to have, like, my hope was that you took at least one thing and it really resonated with you and makes a difference. You've got 3 at least, which I'm really excited about. And probably in my mind, the most important ones: breathing, regardless of whatever type of breathing technique you're using, stopping, taking a moment, breathing, feeling that moment. I do believe that the extended exhale breathing technique is one of the most powerful and simple, because you can do it anywhere and no one needs to know you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the key ones to reduce stress and or anxiety. So that's I'm really happy that was able to resonate with you and that you were able to use it, like it came at the right time in the week for you.
Yeah.
And that non-violence, again, you can take it everywhere and anywhere, not perpetrating violence on yourself. One of the key messages in yoga and one of the most important messages in life, mm-hmm. I feel. And of course, Brené's, allowing yourself to be vulnerable. When you spoke about delivering, training yourself and getting up and doing that and being vulnerable and in that moment and allowing people to experience your vulnerability, kind of gave me shivers down my spine. I think, you know, anyone would want to be in a class with you being able to do that, rather than having what society says is the perfect body up there. And I think it's very similar in the yoga world. Yeah, to be able to learn yoga from someone, it's the same as learning anything, from someone who doesn't perpetuate perfection. Mm-hmm. Not shaming people who are, I was going to say blessed with that experience, but you know, I don't know if that's the right word either. But I think, you know, if we can just show up as we are with what we have and offer what it is we're there to offer, without shame and with being open and vulnerable and inspiring others, is one of the most powerful things we can do in life.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and I think like in anything, just like no journey is perfect. So, but like I eventually get there or will be getting there. And so it's those moments of imperfection where I like to highlight those the most, because I know they're feeling that struggle as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
What is perfection anyway?
Right?
Boring.
Boring. Really, it is. And something that I actually, I mentioned it at the beginning of the video, but just some closing thoughts also on the nutrition, because mindfulness happens everywhere. And so while we're bringing things forward, we are finding ways that we can apply what we learn from each week inside of stuff that you've done before. So this week, you had the courage, and I say courage and I mean it, actually. You had the courage to put away MyFitnessPal of being perfect and knowing exactly what you put in your body, and instead practice intuitive eating. This is so important, especially with somebody who, when you look at the scale and if it goes up, it's oh shit, right? This experience of shame and what you should be doing or have produced or whatever, to put that to the wayside and instead just trust yourself and take on food on your terms takes courage. And so my question is, what was it like for you being more aware of these internal like thoughts, feelings, whatever, while also putting that aside and practicing intuitive eating? Is there anything to say about that?
It was so freeing.
Yay!
I love it.
Like for real. Oh my God. Well, and the thing is too, right? Like it's worked for me in the past. It's been great. But first off, there were no sandwiches made this week.
Oh man.
Sorry.
Oh.
But because there were no sandwiches, like if anything, it was more like, okay, like we're gonna have a good dinner, and we were making extra so I can take leftovers for work the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And which is typically what normally ideally would like to happen anyways. So it was a lot of like my lunches were a lot of leftovers, or they cut the power so I couldn't microwave my leftovers. So I had to go like walk to like the cafe around the park and find something that was like, because I was like, oh, I feel like I'm missing protein for my lunch, because I had like an apple and like soy butter, and then I was like, okay, I need protein. So I had to go seek out bunny food with chicken on it, and I'm like, all right, perfect, this works. But it also got me thinking, like, with those sandwiches, I did have a lot of fiber content in the bread I was using. And that led to the whole fiber question, because I was like, you know what, I feel like I'm not getting the amount of fiber I need to be getting in my diet, especially if it's supposed to be 20 to 25 grams. And when I take a peek at some of my labels, it's like 1. And I'm like, no, I need more. This isn't going to work. And I actually when I was at Save On, yesterday I picked up some avocados, because like 2 days ago, I'm like, I am really craving avocados. And I never do. And so I was like, all right, I need some avocados in my life. So I picked up a bunch. But yeah, no, it's mindful. It's being mindful. And also the why I say freeing is because when I was logging my food, I was pre-logging to make sure I hit all my macros, but at the same time, there was that kind of pressure to eat everything, even if I wasn't hungry. And so that aha moment came this week where I was like, I'm not hungry. Wait, I have no pressure to eat anything right now. I'm gonna eat later. Like, so like that was kind of fun.
I loved your reaction when Cam asked the question. Your whole body just lit up with that statement of it was so freeing, and you even moved your body in a freeing kind of way. It was like, you actually don't need to say anymore. It's written all over your face and all over your body.
And I ask because, like, Tracy, like, what that must be like for you, because like that was not even an intention, but for you to know that like you actually contributed to that freeing vibe, you know, like it's awesome. And these are the, like, if we were to like directly say, all right, so you're going to today experience the sense of freedom when you don't track, like, no, you can't do that. You can't direct a person to experience freedom. Do you know what I mean?
Especially
like,
not getting the reaction that Chirstine just had.
Not at all. And so this is why I highlight the courage of you taking that on, that request, because that was something that at the beginning of this whole journey, like you used the numbers as a way to feel safe. And putting the numbers aside to create safety within yourself is like, you can do whatever you freaking want. You know, like the magnitude of effect of being able to master that skill is so huge. and as well to illustrate to your nieces, to illustrate to people around you, to be the kind of instructor that also is practicing those types of habits and illustrating it to the world around you. Like, you completely change the conversation of what it means to be somebody who gets fit. And it's really inspiring for me to be witness to. And it really, I mean, I'm grateful that, you know, Tracy, you kind of set that intention of nonviolence for that to be inside of this conversation, you know, like just so, you know, imperfection is the most beautiful way to be, because I didn't expect that, right? I did not have the intention of that. And I love the fact that that happened.
Yeah, it's so great.
You know, like the gifts happen inside of imperfection. The book's called The Gifts of Imperfection, by the way. I didn't mean to do
Nice
that. I just
segue.
realized.
It's almost like
Yeah,
we're doing an advertisement for Brene.
yeah, exactly. Buy yours today for $29.99. Just kidding. But yeah, like, anything else that you want to highlight, Chirstine, before we close off here?
I don't think so. Going through my notes.
Cool. It's one of the best things, like at the end of the journey, like watching back videos is like some of the coolest things to witness, because you will be able to see that you hadn't realized something yet. Pretty much. It's cool.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I think
Okay, awesome.
yeah.
Amazing. Well, then let's leave it there. Tracy, always a pleasure. So awesome.
Thank you.
You know, I just want to say again, like, I think what I got from doing this week is that imperfection wins, I think, is what I've got.
Absolutely.
Because, like, I mean, I'm just over the moon that you had that experience, Chirstine, around nutrition, honestly. Because I've been projecting that I wanted to check in around it, but I was like, nope. I want her to experience whatever she needs to experience. And I'm realizing for myself that I was wanting to, like, protect you almost, because I had a preconceived idea of, like, you know, that being very difficult. And I'm like, no, she's got this. And I'm just telling you this because it crossed my mind, right? And it just goes to show, like, how can you teach intuitive eating without, like, just letting yourself go through whatever you need to go through? Yeah, you have to be intuitive. It's kind of ironic that I would have those thoughts inside of that context, but I wanted to share that because, if I'm honest, that was there.
I think as well too, like with logging, like, definitely I think it's a very useful tool for anyone starting their fitness journey and really wanting to understand macros and the composition of their plate. Like, it was just relearning with a new set of macros what that would look like, and then down the road eventually doing it enough times to then trust yourself and be like, okay, as long as I got these sort of ingredients around, or you know, if I have good ingredients around, then I know I'll make good choices. And even when I didn't have good ingredients around because I didn't go shopping, and I don't know if I'll go shopping again today, but it's like, even because, like, in my mind, I kind of struggled a little bit this week because I didn't do groceries. And so I didn't prepare myself. But when Mike was cooking dinners this week, he thankfully made enough where I was able to then take some for lunch the following day. And then I think there was 2 days where I had to actually go out and buy lunch. But when I did it in a way that made sense. Like, I had, what is it? Oh my God, like a chicken burrito bowl. But I asked for double the chicken because I know protein's huge for me and getting enough of it. And like I said, I had like a snack and I couldn't heat up my lunch. So I went to go find a salad with chicken on top. I'm like, all right, this works for me. Let's do it this way. So it's just being creative.
Great improv.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And freeing, which is, I mean, like I said, if you had that trust of self present, how so many things in life would change, you know, different situations, because it's moving away from the dependency of needing to know and instead trusting that you already have the answer.
Mm.
And that's just you practicing that muscle, where then you can apply that in other areas if you want to, or you feel called to. And like you said, tracking is a tool, not a dependency. Because as soon as you stop tracking, then you're broken. No, thank you. Why not be able to thrive on any term, right?
Mm. So true.
All right.
Well, I just want to say thank you to you both. Thanks for everything that you've done, Cam. I think this is amazing. And Chirstine, you are incredible. Seriously, thanks for embracing everything that's been offered so far. And you know, you're a really good sport, but also you're doing really, really well.
Thanks.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks so much, Tracy. And you know, you're in the group, so keep on the lookout for her little messages and her little reflections, because you're going to see little nuggets of this week showing up.
Yeah.
From
I
showing
just
up in the weeks
better
ahead.
at figuring out the app.
It's okay. That's a me making videos and supporting. It's okay.
It's all good. It's just about
we'll
using it and more, as you've probably all figured out.
Yeah, totally.
So keep up the good work, Chirstine.
Thank you.
Keep being kind to yourself. I look forward to observing the rest of your journey.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great Sunday.
You too. Take care. Bye.